Um, Great to be here on the second day of Building the Future and following after Judson's intro speak. It's hard to find a better title than Building the Future and enable every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Because that is exactly what we are going to do. We are going to build the future, and we're going to do it together. And it starts with understanding what AI can do for us, and really understanding how we need to build our organizations for the future to benefit from AI. And this is going to be a long journey. I think AI has been along for a long time, although it feels like it just sort of arrived yesterday. So whether you started and come some way, or you haven't started at all, this is the time to really kick it off, because it will build the future. It will change the world. It's very rare that you live in a time when technology can actually change the world. It can, and AI will. But we need to do it in the right way. So I'm going to talk a bit about what I see in Europe, but also what we need to do to build the infrastructure, to build the underlying fabric to make sure that AI, to Judson's point, is trusted. It's done in a way that we as citizens and individuals want to use it and can use it in the best possible way. So let me start with a couple of numbers. 12%. If we go back to 1955, if we look at the top 500 customers, what is it, 60, 70 years ago, only 12% remains today. So why is that? Why is it that 88% of the most successful companies that we knew about at that point in time has vanished, disappeared, gone into other organizations? Well, it is about capturing the technology wave, being agile, continuously learn, and understand what the future brings. So, what if we look at today, 2024? If you look at the top 500 companies today, how many of them will we still have 10, 20, 30 years from now? Do we believe it's the same? Or do we believe that actually we will have the same trend that we've seen in the past? I think if we're going to be relevant, if we're going to stay as companies, we need to continuously evolve, we need to continuously learn, we need to skill ourselves, but we also need to really understand how we can leverage the power of technology in the time that we live. In this era, it's AI, and it's automation, and it's security. It's a lot of things, but AI will be the dominant force for us to create competitive advantage, but also to help some of the most tasking problems that we see around the world today. So that's the first one. The second one is 750 million. If we look back 40 years, we built 750 million applications during the last 40 years. If we look ahead 5 years, we will build equally many. We will build 750 million new applications in the coming 5 years. And the only way to do that, and obviously this is driven by the demand that we see, the needs that we see in all shades of the organizations and the companies that we see. But the only way we can actually do this in a safe and possible way is actually using the latest technology, where AI is the centerpiece. But then we have a problem, because 85% of organizations across the world are telling us that they don't really have a good grip of their unstructured data. They have a relatively good understanding of the structured data, the data that sits in your databases, in your emails, or in your structured data. But there's a lot of stuff that you don't have structured today. And in order for us to really capture the value of AI, we need to not only look at the structured data, but we also need to make sure that the unstructured data is harnessed, we get the power of that, and we can actually use that to train models and other things. And in order for us to do that, we have another problem, and that is the 4 million number here. And that is the number of developers that we need to have end of next year. So we have an opportunity, we have a couple of gaps, and we know pretty much what they are. So we need to continue to make sure that we have developers, we have skilled people. We in this room, and the ones of you that participate over video, understand the skilling need that we all need to address. During the conference, we spoke about a lot of that. We spoke about the AI innovation factory that we will build here in Portugal, which is a key component to start to test, to start to really make your first experimentation with AI. But it's also a call out for each and every one of you to look at the skilling. Look at the skilling in yourself, in your organization, and in the wider ecosystem. Because no one can do this alone, but together we can actually make an impact and a dent into this sort of deficit that we have on the skilling side. Moving forward, we spoke a lot about AI, and this event is about AI. And we know already today that AI is going to shift because business is going to shift because of AI. It's changing the way we do things. We are becoming more efficient. We're becoming more effective. And it's actually influencing every walk of life. It's influencing everyone. It's influencing us as individuals. For those of you who have kids, look at what your kids do online and what they use today. It's mind-boggling what you can do. But it will also influence the teams that we're working in, how we collaborate with each other, and the tools that we use to become more and more effective, but also use our time in the way where we actually adds the most value. There is concerns, of course, that will AI replace us as individuals? And I think it will only do so if we allow it to do, and I don't think we will. But really understanding how can we as individuals work better together in our teams. But it's also going to impact industries and societies. We see that over and over again. The leading industries and the leading societies now are the ones that are adopting the new technology. This is an opportunity for countries and industries that has been falling behind in the past to really leapfrog and take the opportunity to actually overtake some of the countries that has been sort of leading in the past. I run Western Europe, and we see predominantly smaller countries wanting now to take this as an opportunity to really leapfrog and become a better version of themselves. Some of the issues that we face, though, is regulation. I would talk a bit about that because we need regulation, but what we need it to be we need to have it amplify the potential and not reducing the potential. I spoke about benefit, and there are true benefits when it comes to AI. I think this slide was presented yesterday, and this is more of a commercial slide than a public sector slide, but I will talk a bit about public sector as well. When we look at our commercial business, our enterprise business, the commercial customers out there, we see a good return on investment, and we see a fast return on investment. So companies that IDC, this is an IDC report, has surveyed, 67% are using it. They see for every dollar they put in to an AI investment, they see $3.5 coming back. And they actually see this happening relatively fast. 14 months in, they see benefit. And then, of course, that accumulates over time. So the empiric evidence is there that AI will help us do better things, and AI will help us do faster things, and also implement it in a way where you are not needing to wait 5 years to see the return. The public sector take on this is, I don't know any public sector, whether it's education, healthcare, government, that tells me that they have too many people. Everyone tells me they are short on resources. AI can help with that. Because if you take away all the mundane, all the administrative burdens, maybe the resource pool that schools have today, that governments have today, that administrations have today, that hospitals have today, is enough. But they are doing the wrong thing. I met a doctor the other day saying, and he's a surgeon, he said, and he's 65 years old, he said, when I was 35, 40, and I started to do my surgeries, I did 13 patients a day, 1-3. Now I do 4, because I need to do so much administration. And what he didn't mention was that he had 4 nurses helping him at that point in time, and now he has 1. So here we have a clear case how we can use AI to offload the administrative burden. And the same goes for schooling, the same goes for government bodies. The concern is not that AI will replace people. The opportunity is, what can we do to offload the specialists that we have? How can we make sure that teachers can teach and not being administrators? I think the technology is here The emotions may not be here, and we need to help people overcome this burden. I normally say that AI is not about technology, it's about change management and behavioral change. Because we need to overcome the fear that we may have when it comes to AI. And that's our job in this room. It's the job of Microsoft to make sure that we are creating AI in such a way that everyone trusts it. And I will come back to a bit on how we want to regulate AI. But in order for AI to work, we need some infrastructure, and we need something that is quite big and works across the globe. And we call it an AI computer of the world, a compute fabric that spans the globe. And why do we need this is important? Well, we think this is important because we have customers locally, but we also have a lot of global customers, and they want to make sure that wherever they go, wherever you go as an individual or as a citizen, you can access the same AI compute capability. So we are building this. It's a beast. We invested $11 billion last quarter, and if you look at the NVIDIA report yesterday, you realize that we may buy some NVIDIA cards. I think the share price went up quite massively recently. But you need that compute capability, but you also need data centers. You need sea cable capacity. You need satellite capacity. You need points of presence. You need 300 data centers today, which is growing every week. And this is something that is our commitment to AI. We have never, ever done an investment like we do today in AI because we believe it's building the future, it's changing the world. Now, AI is more than hardware and software. AI is also about regulation. And we believe that AI will never really take off globally if we don't agree on how we want to govern AI, how we want to make sure it's safe, secure, fair, inclusive, without bias. So everything that we do in AI, we start with the assumption, hey, we need to make it correct from the beginning. We are throwing engineers and lawyers at this in the first part of the process. We don't wait to do it afterwards because we believe that this is going to grow so fast. So if we don't get it right from the beginning, we will never be able to correct it afterwards. So we have our principles, how we build AI products within Microsoft, the products that you may test when you do Copilots or you do Azure OpenAI services. But we also need to work in a global community, in a global context of this, because Microsoft cannot do this alone. No one can. So we need to come together as an international community to set these AI governance principles in place. So what we've done, we work with the regulators in the US, we work with EU in Europe, and we work with Asia to make sure that we have the regulatory framework in place. The AI Act was passed or will be passed this spring in EU. We have been really contributing to that because we believe it's fundamental. What we also done, if you looked at the AI computer that I spoke about before, we have created an EU data boundary. And that means that everything that you will put in an EU data center will never, ever leave the EU. We are the only one that has architecture or infrastructure in such a way that if you put it in EU, it can't leave, unless you decided you want it to leave. But that's normally not the intent. Everyone wants to have the data in the EU. And we are also making sure that the support organization that is looking at your data when it's needed is also based here. So you should be safe, you should be secure, and you should know that no one can access your data. Not even a court order from the US can do that. It needs to be a case in Europe. So these are the 5 points that we are driving together with the EU that we believe is important. Everything from government-led AI, we need to have the government with us here. It can't be an industry by itself. It needs to be government bodies. Safety brake when it comes to critical infrastructure. Nobody wants to wake up and there's no electricity, there's no water. It needs to work from a critical infrastructure standpoint. We need to make sure that the best capability in the world can also take care of the most important infrastructures in the world. And we need to make sure that that is happening. Framework for technology, transparency, and public access. We need to be able to audit large language models, we need to be able to audit how things are actually delivered, because there will be IP issues. We are now looking at watermarking pictures that is now generated through DALL-E 3 and other things, DALL-E 2 and other things. So these are the things that we do, but we need to collaborate with the rest of the industry, the rest of the governments in the EU to make sure that this is impactful, it makes sense, and we can use it. Because if it's too hard to operate, people will bypass it, and we don't think that's a good thing. So let's go into a couple of use cases. It has a tendency to become a bit artificial. Let me try to bring it to life. I will have 4 customer cases, and they will go along these lines. So we believe that this is the 4 ways you can actually have AI influencing your business. The one to the left, employee experience. So how do you make sure that your employees are more effective? How do you make sure that the hours they spend working, whether that is at home or in an office or in another place, that they are actually adding value? How can you remove processes and admin that is really not helping an individual to become effective and not really helping them to be motivated? Because demotivated people has a tendency to move elsewhere. So that's number 1. Number 2 is how we engage with our customers. How do we make sure that the customer experience that we, as a provider of service or product to a consumer or an enterprise customer, has the right perception, has the right value, is seen as something positive and not a burden? And that could be public sector customer, it could be me as a patient, it could be me as a student, it could be me as a civil servant or a citizen in a city or a country or a community. But it obviously can be any large enterprise or small enterprise customer. How do we make sure that we are using the data that we have so they feel listened to, rewarded, and that we be seen as someone who really understands the problem? So that's number 2. Number 3 is, and you can see they're probably coming in order of complexity, but also order of impact, if you like, for the business. Number 3 is business process. We've been looking at business process re-engineering for a long time. We have a massive opportunity now with automation of process, Power Automate services, where you automate your process, and equally introducing AI in the automation. There is so much stuff that can be done in this case, and I have one use case for that. Then the last one, which is possibly the most complicated one, and the one that will have definitely most impact long term, is how we use AI for innovation. Because that's where, oops, what did I do now? That's where the biggest value is. We as organizations, how do we innovate with AI? How do we really capture the value of all the data that we have, but also AI's generative capability of interacting with us, natural language interaction, and we can actually talk to data and we can get stuff out of data. So let's jump into it. The first one is of course very, very local. I met Ama this summer, and we had a lunch together, and we were ideating. Andres and me, we were sitting in a nice restaurant somewhere here in Lisbon, and we spoke about what if, this sort of what if interaction. What if I could provide the citizens of Lisbon or the citizens of Portugal with an easier way of accessing documentation, information, instead of calling, having face-to-face meetings, instead of having queues, instead of being sort of a bit annoyed all the time. So we worked with the ARM organization, and there has been a pilot out, an assistant, an agent, if you like, a digital agent, where you can interact and you can get the documentation that you need. You can do it in a much faster way. You don't have to go through a cumbersome process of a face-to-face meeting or a phone call to get what you have. And when you get it, eventually it may even not be the right one. And this is, of course, a pilot. It's the first one. The next one is more languages. I think it's. I was told yesterday evening that now we can now reach 40 languages with this, which means that people trying to integrate and move into Portugal can actually get it in their local language, if you like. And of course, there's a host of things that we can do to improve citizen services. And this is, of course, us as a customer, as a citizens, and how we then perceive the relationship with the authorities in a country and getting access to that. And this you can take to whatever kind of level. I mean, now we're starting this, and I look forward to what more we can do with AMA. Next one is, I'm Swedish, by the way, so Volvo is close to my heart. Volvo has two components, two companies actually. This is Volvo Trucks. Volvo Cars is a different thing. If you drive a Volvo car, it has nothing to do with this one. But Volvo Trucks, or Volvo AB as it's called, they do heavy trucks, buses, construction machinery. Big global company. And you can imagine operating in hundreds of countries, their invoicing and claims process is a cumbersome one. So they worked with us, and they say, hey, what can we do to provide an improvement for the employees in Volvo to have a significantly improved invoicing and claims process. So we looked at what is invoicing and claim. It's documentation, it's text, it's stamps, it's pictures. Can we put vision AI to help us reason over those documents? Can we make sure that we automate the process? Can we make sure that we have AI helping us with different languages? So we did a pilot. I need to read this. The pilot took 6 weeks. We did 4 months implementation for one process. And now in November, when I met them, they told me that they are saving 1,000 hours a month because of an automated process. So, and they have hundreds of these processes. 1,000 hours a month. I asked them, how much is an hour worth for you? He said, probably $100, maybe $200. So one process, 4 months, $200,000 saving. So this is, and then these are small things, but we need to amplify them and we need to make them more and more and make them bigger. And I think if you have anything like that, please skill yourself. We have the toolbox, but this can be done relatively fast. Next one is probably the best beer in the world, as they say. Carlsberg. Carlsberg is known for making beers. They are also a big software company. Everything that they do is digital. Every process they have is digital. But they also sit with a host of developers. And a while back, they came to us and say, hey, we have developers sitting in teams that are disconnected. They work on the same source code, but they don't sit in the same facility. They don't sit in the same room. They can't just talk to each other when something comes up that is contextual or an issue or a problem. Sorry. Which leads to that they need to stop and start their coding process all the time because there's no context and there's no one to ask. They need to call someone or chat with someone in order to make sure that the end-to-end development work, the process of creating source code, is not interrupted. So we worked with them and we said, hey, why don't you try GitHub Copilot, which is contextual, which is end-to-end, where you can have dozens of people working on the same codes all the time, and if someone enters something that doesn't make sense, doesn't have the right information, or requires further investigation, the system stops it and makes sure that the quality of the code is better. So we have now introduced Copilot for GitHub on Carlsberg. Massive end-to-end unified development process, saves them tons of hours, but most importantly, the code is clean. Interesting process case. More of that. Let me finish with Boehringer Ingelheim, a pharma company. When you create medicine and pills and drugs, you have an enormously long sales process. And the life cycle of a drug or a medicine is super long. Normally, it can be between 10 to 100,000 documents. There are thousands of researchers operating in that space. They were just having a massive problem with all the knowledge that they have, sitting in emails, sitting in notes, sitting in PowerPoints, Word documents, and they didn't really have a proper way of reason over all that data. Because it could be 20 years long, this process of a life cycle of a drug. It could actually be longer. So they worked with us to see, can we find a different way of accessing structured and unstructured data? Can we find a way of reason over this huge amount of knowledge to make it useful for us when we do other research projects for other drugs? So they invented actually themselves a semantic search engine that reasons over all of the data estate they have, wherever it sits. It's based on Azure OpenAI. They call it IQ now, and it has reduced time to market, time to product, but also gotten their whole estate of data into knowledge, into reusable knowledge for future product, into a completely different state. So those are 4 cases, and of course I should mention Microsoft as well. What are we doing in Microsoft? Because obviously we are drinking our own champagne, is it? Or at least are eating our own dog food. Because if we are using what we do all every day. But what we need to start with is, of course, do we have control of our data? Do we understand our security posture? Do we have the right internal skills to leverage the tools that we have? Because as I said in the beginning, AI is a technology, AI is a tool, but the journey to benefit from it is actually a cultural journey. It's about change management, adoption, and behavioral change. And if we don't change, we will not get the benefit from AI. We need to interact with this force in a different way. So what we are doing, we are using every tool that we have, of course. We are using this ourselves. We are contributing to the regulatory environment and the governance of AI. We are building the global compute fabric through Azure. But we also use everything. I use it on my phone every day. I use Teams Copilot, I use Office Copilot, I use PowerPoint Copilot in all different shades. And I'm learning every day. I'm far from perfect, but you need to learn and you need to understand, how do I interact with something in natural language? How do I talk to my Excel sheet? How do I talk to my Power BI report to make sure that I really get the best out of that? So I'm learning. But I want you to learn as well. One example that I take all the time is how Microsoft Finance Department is using AI. We have 40 ongoing projects in Microsoft Finance. We have reduced our standard contract time by 50%. From we get a contract in until we sign it, until we handle it, 50% saving. That's a huge amount of money for us because we have, as you can imagine, quite a lot of contracts. We have saved 125,000 hours per year in invoicing approvals. I approve all my invoices in Teams. Takes me 2 seconds. I need to check them. I do. Trust me. But it's such a blessing to be able to have these kind of processes and the tooling to take it away, things like that. And the last one, which I think your CFO will look into, we have improved our cash collection with 10 percentage points. 10 percentage points. And if you go to your CFO and you say, hey, I have this project, I want to improve my cash collection with 10%, I can tell you they will give you money. So with that, I hope I gave you some ideas. Thank you for being here. I think it's a fantastic venue, it's a fantastic event. And please start a journey on AI. Thank you very much.